Welcome to the introductory call for the Design Jam. This is an event that will span across 4 different weeks with 4 different sessions. This is session number 1, which is the introductory call for the Design Jam. So, welcome. A little bit of information about who we are as an organization. We were founded in 2014 in Berlin, and since then we are actively hosting typically in person meetups across 14 different cities, including San Francisco, Chicago, New York, London, and Tokyo, just to name a few. And we, like mentioned, we are typically hosting in person events. And so this is actually one of the first times we are hosting an online experience, and definitely the first time we're hosting an online design jam. And so we're specifically, focusing on coronavirus related topics for this design jam, since we are all on either lockdown, shelter in place, or quarantine. A little bit about me. My name is Alex Shirazi. I'm one of the organizers of this group, along with Mila Kogan, and we have been organizing events primarily in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we're also active members of the Slack channel, so you might have seen our names or faces there as well. So, what is a design jam? So, typically in person, we have a 3 hour session, and in these 3 hours, we have a mini hackathon of sorts, and this is the traditional design jam. We start with an introduction of a topic, a design challenge. Sometimes the sponsor or host will give us this challenge, and then we break up into groups of 5 or 6 and have kind of a brainstorm, followed by defining the problem, creating a solution, iterating on that, and then presenting. And so that typically happens through the span of 3 hours. But now that we're doing an online design jam, we're going to be doing it through 4 different sessions over the course of 4 weeks. For the prompt, we're focusing on coronavirus. So the idea is, as designers, scientists, and software engineers, we're going to come together and identify, what is a problem that we're finding because of COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and what is a potential design solution to that problem. And we know that outside of a health standpoint, there are many people, businesses, and industries that are affected by this, and so we want to find solutions to alleviate some of those issues. We have 3 different examples that we've laid out here. One of them is health and medicine, food and retail, and then mental health. So, starting off with health and medicine, one problem is, for example, there's a lack of staff and supplies. And a solution to that would be, for example, creating new instructions that are supplied or mandated by the World Health Organizations to create masks at home. And what we've been seeing is that a lot of people are starting to create masks at home and then donating them to health workers. Excuse me. Another example is food and retail. So the most vulnerable are sometimes having trouble getting groceries and supplies. And so, one solution to that is that supermarkets have set up a system in place, such as specific time windows for either the elderly or health workers. One thing that I had read was a news story about, I think it was a nurse, health worker that had just come back from a 12-hour shift, needed to get groceries, and actually the shelves were kind of emptied out already. And so, grocery stores are finding creative solutions to that problem. Another problem is mental health. And so the mental health example um, is, if individuals are having a hard time coping or being isolated, a lot of times depression comes up when we are in this type of isolated mode. One solution would be to create a platform that supports and promotes check-ins, or even, to give you guys an example, I traditionally work out of a WeWork, and the WeWork was hosting like a remote coffee hour.
right? And so having this type of interactions is sometimes really helpful, especially if someone might be in a fragile state for whatever it may be. So I quickly want to mention that Protocols IO is a open access or is a platform where scientists can put their publications and research there. Anita, who's on this call, and myself, we are working at protocols.io, and the company has created a coronavirus method development group. I had mentioned earlier that some scientists from that group are on this call as well. There's over 200 members of um, people that are actively contributing to coronavirus research. And I'm going to add a link to this group in the main chat after the conversation. But that's something that we can use as reference as we go into creating new ideas through this remote design jam and brainstorming opportunities. So there's a schedule of events. And so I noticed that there might be some questions. We'll answer all the questions at the end. And we've just put the link for the Protocols IO group in the chat if you're interested. But so for schedule of events, this is week one. This is an introduction where all the attendees will be getting on a group call. Next week, we have a brainstorming session that will be for the teams of 5 or 6 only. And I'll get to the teams in just a second. In that week two is when we're going to be creating different brainstorming topics, ideas, and also low fidelity solutions, whether they're mock-ups or even, for example, a draft of a presentation, that kind of thing in week two. And then week three is the iteration and finalization of this kind of solution that you come up with. And again, that's a team only exercise. And then week four, which I believe is scheduled for April 16th, but I'll double check. Week four is another large group presentation. And now that we know we have to kind of lock it down to a webinar format, what we'll do is that there will be team leads for each group, and the team leads will work with us ahead of time and get permission to be a presenter on the webinar. And then that team lead will be able to go through the presentation of their solution to the prompt. So to go into a little bit more detail, next week, actually, before I even jump into this, I want to mention that we've sent out a questionnaire. And so if you have not filled this out, please do this today or tomorrow. We'll share the link again. But essentially, this asks some information about like what your background is, your level of expertise, and what time works best for your availability. And if you're interested in being a team lead, what this does is it helps us assign groups for this remote design jam. And we have quite a few participants. So I believe the groups will be, I think, 6 to 8 so far. But once everybody fills out the form and we assign the groups, we're going to be sending out assignments, I believe, by Sunday. Additionally, we have this guide that has information about the meetup, the questionnaire, but also everything that we're covering on this call, as well as additional dates. So we'll also be sending this out. Going back to the deck, so for week two, the first team will be meeting, I think it's the week of March 30th. So depending on what answer you fill out on the questionnaire, um, we will assign you a particular team. So for example, if you're on the East Coast versus the West Coast, and I see a question came in from Dan about that, we're going to try our best to match you up in accordance to time. So I have to actually, I'll check in with Mila to make sure that we do have a timestamp, but I think that since the groups are 5 or 6, the team lead will dictate the specific time that your team will be meeting. And so if you're in the East Coast or West Coast, that'll be determined on the group level. Um, and so, like mentioned, brainstorming, share stories and concerns. Maybe there's something that you personally feel could be accomplished during this time. This is where the research phase comes in. And then the team lead and the team will come up and agree on a specific problem that will be locked down. And then, define what the solutions will look like. Start on sketches, wireframes, lo-fi solution for the overall process. Week 3 is when we're going to be making edits to the solution, complete the work from week 2, and put the work into a deliverable in the form of a PDF or video or even prototype that will kind of like finalize the solution. There's a couple other examples actually that I have seen since we even put all of this together. Some of them I think came up on Hacker News, and I'll be sharing them with you guys later. But to give you an example, there was a group that put together a website where if anybody has extra masks or equipment, they have plotted it on a map geographically. So if there is a hospital that's lacking, I think all the hospitals are lacking right now, but if there is a hospital that can tap into resources from other areas or other hospitals, they've put together this map. So there's a lot of great examples. Week 3 is when we're going to be really finalizing and putting everything together. And then week 4 is the presentation. And so the presentations are 5 minutes followed by 3 minutes of questions. They'll be assigned, the order will be assigned ahead of time. And I believe that's also starting at a 5 p.m. West Coast, 8 p.m. East Coast time. So similar to this meeting here. Now, on Wednesday, March 25th, that's today, we ask that you fill out the questionnaire. The sooner we're going to be assigning everything on Sunday. So the sooner you fill out the questionnaire, the better. And on Sunday, you'll get your invite to the team in accordance to your team lead. And on Monday, March 30th, we'll be sending out additional info to all the team leads about what the next steps are. So, with that being said, I want to open it up and let's see, how the QA works is actually through let's see, you have to raise your hand. So let's see, there's a QA section here and I have a chat, so let me see.
And Alex, while you do this, I wanted to also clarify something about team leads, that it's kind of just a way of having at least someone to guide a conversation or guide the solution. So just in case you get into a position where there are too many ideas and you guys can't really settle on one, because this is such an open-ended prompt. So it'll allow you guys to do that. So having a person to sort of guide things a little bit. But the second thing is also that we might be sending out a really short questionnaire at the end of week 2 and week 3 for the team lead to fill out, just so we're all in the same page, and if you guys have any questions and all that stuff. So we'll likely be doing that as well. And that's it.
Great. And so there's 2 ways you can ask questions. One is through the QA, and then the other is through the chat. I see some questions have already come in, and I think we have answered all of them. And it looks like, so we just got a question. Can I resubmit the Google form again? I want to change one piece of information. That's totally fine. If your name is, the name is the same, we can just match that against and it should be no problem. And let's see, are there any other questions that come to mind? And I'll type it into the chat now, but this is the Google Doc that we're using. It's sfuxd.com/jam. and somebody just asked what the link is for the questionnaire. If you go to the sfuxd.com/jam, it should take you to a Google Doc, and one of the top links is a link to the questionnaire. We'll also repost that on there. So another question came in is, can you remind me when we will know our teams, from Rachel? And so the teams will be assigned by Sunday. And so that means that if you do put Monday as a preference, just make sure you check your email on Sunday in case you do have a Monday meeting. But by Sunday, you'll know, and then your team lead will get in touch with you about when to host, when the first meeting will be, or I guess the second meeting.
Also, another thing about the meetings with your team. So we talked about possibly making the invite through Google Hangouts. I don't know if we still, I think for that kind of thing where it's a small team, I think that's probably the best situation. The other thing is, if you guys need to, if you guys want to meet maybe even another time or extend the time or shift the time for some reason, I think you guys should talk to your team lead about it as a group at that point. I think, yeah, I think kind of basing things on your team lead for extending anything or meeting a second or third time. Yep.
Yeah, I guess another thing to mention is that, you know, we're for team leads, we're looking at people of all experience levels. So you just have to be motivated. So, for example, if you are, you know, a senior in a design position, and you're used to kind of, you know, working with different levels of designers, that's a good fit. But also, if you are junior and you want to get, you know, more work for your portfolio, it's also a good opportunity. So it looks like another question came in. What are the expectations of the project size? And so, you know, this is a good question. So usually,
Hey guys, I don't know if you can hear me. For me, Alex froze. I don't know if that was the case for everyone else. But to piggyback off of what he was saying, usually when we do it within an hour. And so it'll be sketches, or even like if you're thinking about a service or a business opportunity or something like that, that goes outside of the typical product design scope. It could be just the process or what the idea is and how it would work. We pretty much expect the same for this, but at the end of the day, Alex, if you feel differently, but at the end of the day, it's really whatever you guys feel you want to present. Again, this is really open-ended, and it's really about conveying ideas and a possible solution to whatever extent. Just put in a PDF form. Even if it's like a one-page mock-up of a website, let's say, that's fine too. Did you have anything to add? Yeah.
No, yeah, that was great. And we'll have additional examples that we'll post there. Another question that came in is, it said, I don't see a time zone on the Google form, maybe a good idea to add it. Because the groups will be in groups of 5 or 6, I think the specific time and time zones will be figured out with the team. But we might take that into consideration if we see that that's still a challenge. Another question is, what's the incentive for doing this? Is there a prize or something at the end? And so we have thought about bringing in judges to kind of review the prompts, but right now we have not established any kind of formal prizes or anything like that. But that's not to say that as we continue to do this series over the next 3 weeks, there might be other companies that are involved that want to help incentivize and kind of like promote this type of work. And so that's definitely not out of scope. And also, if you or your company is doing something that is similar or related to kind of making improvements to either coronavirus specifically or just design thinking, in general and would like to get involved and kind of tap into the community, that's definitely welcomed as well. We have quite a bit of a few questions, so I'll try to get through them. So another one is, how will we get to know the details in the future? Like on Sunday when you finalize the team, how will you be hearing about it? So you'll be getting an email blast through the San Francisco and New York user experience designer meetup groups. But one thing that I would highly suggest, and if you're not already part of the Slack channel, is to get on the Global UXD Slack channel. We're going to have, if we don't already, a channel that's specific for the design jam. So any questions that you have can be answered on the design channel. And I'm looking at it right now. I think there's over 780 people on this Slack channel, most of them designers. And so we'll create a special section just for this design jam. And so that's probably the best way to kind of hear about all the updates.
And I also want to add to that, that the way you'll find out about your actual team and the days that you'll be with your team is we'll be sending out that invitation to you and your team. And so we got all your email addresses from and I think this was part of the question, but we got all your email addresses from the questionnaire. So it'll be sent directly to you, as well as the invite for hopefully week 2 and week 3 around the same time. So
great. So another question is that do we get to vote for final projects? Right now, there's no voting for winners or anything like that. But I think what we will do is that if we see a large number of teams submitting projects before the presentations on week 4, we will put together a kind of website showcasing all the different projects that we can share through the network. But there won't be any formal voting. And I will kind of actually answer another question that's related, and it says it's not in terms of prizes, but will there be any design mock-up critiques of any sort? And there's a couple different phases where your work will be critiqued. So primarily after the presentation, there's a short 3-minute Q&A section. But oftentimes we see is that even after the design jam, the conversation gets continued. And so there's definitely opportunities to kind of share your work with other folks to get critiques on what you've done, whether it's visual or strategic or whatever it may be. And then there's another question, are we going to run user research to get a solution? So oftentimes we do see in our 3-hour sessions, people will do like, I guess we call it coffee shop testing or hallway testing, where they'll just go to their peers or people in different groups to do quick user research. But in this case, we have a lot more opportunity. So if you want to run surveys or do other types of user research over the course of the 4 weeks, that's highly, highly encouraged. And I think will totally add to the overall effectiveness of the project. And I think, this is a little bit special for us too, because not only is this a design solution to a problem that we think, can be solved, a lot of times these issues are related to business or different types of software companies that are giving us the prompt. This is something where I think the whole world could benefit if we come up with a really nice solution to one of those focus areas related to coronavirus. So, user research is fantastic. Somebody said, is there a link to join this Slack channel? So there is. So if you don't have the link, all the links are on the sfuxd.com/jam. So that's a link that's in the chat right now. So sfuxd.com/jam. And then the third link on that document is an invite to the Slack channel. And that is it. And I think the last comment, it says, very cool project from Rachel. Thank you for being here. And also thank you to somebody named Shannon, I think sent a really good resource over when we were dealing with the Zoom fiasco. So thank you for your support. And thank you guys for asking so many good questions as well. I think that's it in terms of what we wanted to highlight on the deck here. Mila, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close off?
No, I mean, I wanted to add with the critiquing. So part of what we have done in the past and want to continue doing, not sure if we can for this specific design jam, but it is what Alex briefly mentioned, which was having a small judging panel. And I think during that time, that judging panel would be able to say a couple of words or comments about each project. Or at the very least, the winning project, or claim one as the winner. And I know we did say that in the description as well, as there being a judging panel and a winner. So we will try to formulate that for this one, but certainly that's a goal in the future of having that to get a couple of more comments and words. So, but other than that, I so far so good. I think this was, all things considered, I think this is a really great start to something that we could be doing more often, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you guys. And we've got 50 participants on the call now, and I think that's, despite our setback, I think that's pretty good. And we're pretty excited to look through the questionnaires and field any questions that you might have. And we're really excited to get this going.